A weapon invisible to the eye, lethal enough to twitch the muscles and stop your breathing. Poison has been used throughout the history of mankind for devilish purposes, from the ancient times to this modern era. This quiet assassin can strike at any time, even when your guard is up and your senses are alert. From the man murdered at the South Pole to the painkiller that took several lives at once. These are the cases where the murderers are still unknown to this day. Rodney Marx, the man who died at the South Pole. On his way towards the research building at the Amundsen Scott South Pole Station, Marx felt a sudden feeling of discomfort. But this was not the usual strange feeling one experiences while working at the South Pole in extreme weather of -80 degrees Fahrenheit. Soon after this strange feeling, the 32-year-old astrophysicist began to lose his vision. Marx became breathless and exhausted, so he lied down in his bed, hoping to wake up with the pain gone away. However, sleep did not help Marx. He woke up on the morning of 12th of May 2000, vomiting blood. His doctor, Robert Thompson, initially diagnosed him with anxiety but with deteriorating symptoms. He had to take a serious step to ease the excruciating pain Marx was suffering. The third time Marx visited the doctor with hyperventilation, Dr. Thompson injected him with an antipsychotic to calm him down. Soon after, Marx began to breathe slowly. What appeared to be a sign of health soon became a sign of death. Shortly after his breathing slowed down, Marx went into a cardiac arrest and died at 6:45 p.m. that same day. His autopsy, however, would not be performed till the end of October. A plane flew the dead body of Marx to Christchurch, New Zealand, where a forensic pathologist, Dr. Martin, conducted his autopsy. The results were shocking, to say the least. Marx had been poisoned by the overusage of methanol. Methanol is a toxic chemical used to clean scientific equipment and cause serious health problems or even death, if consumed in significant amounts. Even though Marx was an alcoholic, there was no way he had consumed methanol all by himself. The 32-year-old astrophysicist was a happy man with plans to get married and a career to look forward to. So there were no questions about Marx ending his own life. There was, however, one suspicion that made sense. Someone had gradually begun drugging him. Several investigations later, authorities came to the conclusion that Marx's cause of death was impossible to determine due to a lack of strong evidence. Aruj Khan poisoning case, the fate of the lottery winner. After having a scrumptious meal of Indian lamb curry made by his second wife, Shabana Ansari, the lottery winner of Aruj Khan, went to sleep only to wake up with excruciating pain within his body. On July 20th, right after winning a lottery ticket worth $425,000, Aruj Khan and his wife, Shabana Ansari, celebrated their win with a traditional dinner. Little did they know their happiest moment would become their worst nightmare in a matter of minutes. In the middle of the night, Khan wakes up in agony and then collapses on the floor in his Chicago home. His wife called 911 immediately. Even though the medical examination showed no signs of foul play or trauma, there was one member who remained persistent the death of Aruj Khan is not natural. His brother Initius Khan had suspicions about Aruj Khan's death, so he persuaded the medical examiners to conduct another examination on his brother's corpse. The medical office began testing Khan's blood through a more comprehensive procedure and surprisingly found out that his blood contains lethal levels of cyanide. Very suspicious timing, might I add. But the next revelation by his brother raised suspicions of the neighborhood. Imtiaz Khan claimed that Shabana Ansari had attempted to deposit the check right after the death of her husband and is also trying to manage his bank accounts. Even though the blame game between the family continued, the case remained unsolved. No investigation could deduce who gave the victim the deathly poison. According to Miss Blum, a former chemist, cyanide poisoning is a nasty death. The victim dies within 10 minutes of a heavy consumption, and even a moderate amount can cause death within a mere few hours. Patsy Wright, the case of the most gruesome poisoning. The case of Patsy Wright is mysterious before it turns tragic. In 1987, a 43-year-old woman was found dead in her Texas home. It was only after a close examination that investigators were able to determine her cause of death. Patsy had been poisoned with strychnine. Because of its horrific side effects like muscle twitches, suffocation, and extreme convulsions, death from strychnine is a cruel way to murder. It's also very rare to murder by this poison. Since 1950, there's only been one death in the whole of the United States by strychnine. Patsy Wright, the mother of 2 children and the owner of wax museums worth over $6 million, had a seemingly perfect life. She had a wonderful present and a great future planned ahead. One morning at 3 a.m., her sister Sally receives a call where Patsy frantically tells her that she cannot breathe. Upon asking for the details of what exactly was happening to her sister, Sally does not receive an answer. She frantically runs to her sister's home with her husband Steve, only to find her dead in her bedroom. Later in the autopsy, the police find high levels of strychnine. Sally informs the police that Patsy told her on the phone call she had taken her cold medicine before going to bed, after which she had trouble breathing. The police tested her bottle of medicine, only to find out it was laced with strychnine, enough to kill 8 to 9 people. The police began to suspect Sally's husband, Steve. Close family and friends told the police that Patsy never liked Sally's husband. Sally and Patsy owned the museums, and Patsy was infuriated that Steve spent all of Sally's inheritance and had drowned in debt. She was about to have a discussion with Sally that if anything happened to either of her sisters, Steve would not get a penny out of their business. Investigators believe that someone close to Patsy had poisoned her. The burglar alarm was not set on the night when Patsy died, even though she had put it on after someone broke into her home somewhat recently. Secondly, only the people close to her know her habit of taking cold medicine when she had trouble sleeping. Steve took a polygraph test and was deemed innocent by the authorities. Patsy's exes came into the picture, but none of them cooperated fully with the police to help the case of Patsy. As such, it remains unsolved to this day. Alexander Litvinenko, the man who made the Russian mafia his enemy. An avid critic of the Russian government and a former member of the Russian Federal Security Service, Alexander Litvinenko was no stranger to danger. The first one to describe Putin's Russia as a mafia state, Litvinenko knew he was playing with fire that could burn him down and leave only his ashes. Observing closely the crimes of the country's government, Litvinenko soon fled Russia in 2000 to seek asylum in the UK. Little did he know that his life would end mysteriously by the people he once trusted his life with. On the morning of November 1st, 2006, Litvinenko met 2 Russian men in his London hotel. He enjoyed some tea with these mysterious men, named Andrei Lugovoy and Dmitry Kovtun, who also happened to be Litvinenko's former colleagues in the Russian FSB. Shortly after the meeting, Litvinenko began to feel severely ill. The doctors admitted him for thallium poisoning, but later found out that the most crucial symptom of thallium poisoning was missing. Litvinenko was suffering from an abnormal heart rate, severe bone marrow failure, and gut damage. He had neither pain nor numbness in his hands and feet, which is a common symptom of thallium poisoning. There was one more test to be conducted, and this one would give away the most gruesome reality that Litvinenko had faced: polonium-210 poisoning. Polonium-210 is a rare radioactive isotope, tiny and invisible. This undetectable substance can lead to a painful death. It's so rare that only governments with nuclear abilities can have access to it. As Litvinenko blames Putin for poisoning his tea through his men, there was nothing the doctors could do now. It was far, far too late. On November 23, 2006, Litvinenko died after succumbing to a third cardiac arrest. Soon after, an investigation was launched into his death. It was very clear from the beginning that Litvinenko's case is far from the ordinary. The 2 suspects he had tea with were investigated, but they denied any involvement. Tensions between UK and Russia reached a fever pitch. Many denials later, it became pretty evident that the Russian government was involved in the murder. The investigations found that the teapot Litvinenko drank from had traces of polonium-210. It was also found that the suspect, Lugovoy, had left a trail of this radioactive substance in his hotel room bathroom. Several years later, in 2016, the investigation reached a probability. Even after so many years, the investigations only claim that the Russian government probably approved the murder. Without any strong evidence, this claim could not be backed by the authorities, and the poisoning of the Russian critic remains unsolved. Chicago Tylenol murders. The painkiller turned killer. In the fall of 1982 in Chicago, September 29th to be exact, the lives of the people changed when 7 died mysteriously after taking Tylenol capsules. A crime that would simply shock the nation and how we think about product safety forever. Extra-strength Tylenol taken by people from 12 to 35 years of age did not know their usual painkiller medication is laced with deathly cyanide. The news of the sudden deaths spread like wildfire, and people frantically ran to the pharmacies to return their Tylenol and buy other painkillers instead. While the people panicked, authorities led an intense investigation into the murders. Finding the source of this contamination became their sole purpose. However, little success was achieved. One man was arrested by the officials, but little came out of it. The horrible incident took 7 lives, but there was little done to ease the pain of the victims' families. After the horrific murders, Tylenol's parent company decided to create tamper-proof packaging and set new safety standards for their industries. This case may have faded from the memories of the Chicago residents, but their legacy lives on in the safety measures we take for granted today.